For more than 2,000 years, a technology existed that solved one of humanity's oldest problems so completely that it barely needed explanation. It didn't buzz. It didn't drip. It didn't require schedules, pressure regulators, or human attention. Once buried, it worked silently, patiently, responding only to the needs of the soil itself. Ancient farmers wrote about it not with wonder, but with certainty. They didn't argue for it. They didn't justify it. They simply recorded that it worked. One base, hill, one refill, every 7 days. An entire growing season sustained. This was not a myth. It was documented, repeated, and trusted across civilizations. And then, almost overnight in historical terms, it vanished. Not because it failed, not because it was inefficient, but because it was too perfect for the modern world to tolerate. What you're about to hear is the story of the irrigation system that nearly made an entire global industry unnecessary, and why it was quietly pushed out of sight. Welcome to Lost Nature Vault. The first written trace of this technology appears in a Chinese agricultural manual compiled during the Han Dynasty, more than 2 millennia ago. The text is known as the Fanshang Shishu, one of the earliest systematic farming guides ever recorded. It doesn't read like philosophy. It reads like instructions passed down by people who had already tested failure and survived it. Dig 530 pits per hectare. Place an unglazed earthen jar in the center of each pit. 6 liters of capacity, mouth level with the soil surface. Fill with water. That's it. No explanation of forces, no diagrams of flow, no discussion of why. The ancient authors didn't need theory. They had outcomes. Crops survived drought, labor dropped to almost nothing. Disease, pressure, declined. Fields stayed productive when surface-irrigated farms failed. For centuries, farmers followed these steps, not because they understood the physics, but because their children ate as a result. This was not an isolated Chinese trick. As trade routes expanded, so did the idea. By the time the technique reached the Middle East, Persian engineers adapted it for extreme aridity. Archaeologists have uncovered buried irrigation vessels across ancient Mesopotamia, positioned with deliberate spacing, aligned with crop rows, integrated into food systems that supported entire cities. In regions where rainfall was unreliable and rivers were unpredictable, these jars became insurance against collapse. They worked when canals dried. They worked when floods failed to arrive. They worked when nothing else did. On the other side of the world, long before European contact, Native American societies independently refined the same principle. The Hohokam people of the desert Southwest built vast agricultural networks in what is now Arizona, one of the harshest farming environments on the continent. While modern observers once assumed these societies survived barely above subsistence, the archaeological record tells a different story. They produced surplus. They supported dense populations, and they did it without pumps, without plastic, without electricity. Buried clay vessels quietly delivered water exactly where it was needed, exactly when it was needed. When Spanish colonists arrived in the 16th century, they did not encounter desperate farmers. They encountered systems that had endured for nearly 1,000 years. The buried jar was not primitive. It was optimized by necessity. So why did a method that sustained civilizations across continents disappear from modern agriculture? The answer begins with understanding how it actually works. Unglazed terracotta clay is porous at a microscopic level. To the naked eye, it looks solid. Under magnification, it is a labyrinth of tiny channels. When you bury a clay vessel and fill it with water, you create a pressure differential between the inside of the pot and the surrounding soil. Dry soil exerts high moisture tension. That tension literally pulls water through the clay walls. As the soil becomes moist, the tension decreases. The flow slows. When the ground is fully saturated from rainfall, the tension drops so low that the seepage stops entirely. No valves, no switches, no programming. The system regulates itself using nothing but physics and biology. Plant roots are not passive recipients in this process. They actively participate. Roots grow toward moisture gradients. Over time, they wrap themselves around the surface of the buried jar, forming dense networks that draw water precisely as needed. If you excavate a jar after a growing season, You will not find random root distribution. You will find intention. The plants have learned where the water lives. This creates something no modern irrigation system can truly replicate. Demand-based delivery at the root level. Water is never wasted on soil that doesn't need it. It is never delivered when plants cannot absorb it. It is never exposed to the sun, never lost to evaporation, never stolen by runoff. Modern science eventually caught up to what ancient farmers already knew. Researchers at the University of California, Riverside, led by David Bainbridge, measured the efficiency of buried clay pot irrigation against conventional surface methods. The results were not marginal. Water use efficiency improved by 50 to 70%. In sandy soils with high drainage, savings approached 70%. The University of Arizona confirmed similar results in controlled trials, but water savings were only part of the story. Weed pressure collapsed. Weeds depend on surface moisture to germinate. When water is delivered below ground, weeds starve. In one Indian study, surface irrigated plots produced over 400 kilograms of weed biomass per hectare. Buried pot plots produced just over 60. Less water, fewer weeds, healthier crops, higher yields. By every metric that mattered to farmers trying to survive, the berry jar was superior. And that superiority created a problem. In the mid-20th century, a technological shift occurred that had nothing to do with performance and everything to do with economics. Drip irrigation emerged from Israeli research and quickly spread worldwide. It was genuinely innovative. Plastic tubing, precision emitters, controlled delivery, eat, work. But unlike the clay pot, drip irrigation came bundled with a business model. Drip systems require installation expertise. They require filters, emitters. Clogged tubing degrades under ultraviolet light. Timers fail. Pressure regulators break. Every season creates a reason to buy replacements. Maintenance is not optional. It is built into the system. This was not an accident. It was how an industry was born. Companies like Netafim, Rain, Bird, and Toro built global empires on drip irrigation infrastructure. By 2024, the drip irrigation market was valued at nearly $7 billion. Compare that to the buried clay pot. It costs less than a dinner plate. You buy it once. You bury it once. It doesn't break. It doesn't require upgrades. It doesn't create repeat customers. From a commercial perspective, it is a dead end. No recurring revenue. No proprietary components. No service contracts. So without any conspiracy, without secret meetings or overt bans, the method quietly disappeared. Agricultural extension services stopped teaching it. University textbooks reframed it as a historical curiosity. Modern irrigation was described as progress. Clay pots became nostalgia. The message was subtle, but clear. Serious agriculture uses modern systems. Simple solutions are for amateurs. The knowledge wasn't destroyed. It was deep. Reclaiming it today is almost embarrassingly simple. You don't need specialized suppliers. You don't need certification. You need an unglazed terracotta pot. Not glazed. Glaze seals the pores and kills the system. Plug the drainage hole. A cork works. A small amount of food-grade silicone works. The goal is a watertight base with breathable walls. Bury the pot so the rim sits just above soil level. This prevents dirt from washing inside. Pack the soil firmly against the clay. That contact is essential. Cover the opening with a saucer or flat stone to prevent evaporation and insects. Fill it with water. Plant around it. Walk away. A 1-liter pot irrigates roughly a 2-foot radius. Larger pots serve larger areas. Tomatoes, beans, squash, melons. All find it quickly. In extreme heat, you check it once a week. If it's full, do nothing. If it's low, refill it. You cannot overwater. The soil will not accept more than it needs. What vanished in the 20th century was not a flawed technology. It was an inconvenient one. In industrial monocultures where scale overrides resilience, drip irrigation has its place. But for home gardeners, small farmers, and anyone who wants to grow food without fighting equipment, the ancient system is often superior. It does not ask for attention. It does not punish neglect. It improves the longer you leave it alone. The farmers who first recorded this method didn't have modern materials, but they understood something we've forgotten. The best technology is the one that removes humans from the equation. The jars are still here. The physics hasn't changed. The plants still know what to do. The only question is whether we are willing to unlearn the idea that progress must be complicated. This is Lost Nature Vault. We uncover the systems that work too well to survive modern economics. The next vault opens soon.